Hey guys, Skabones here with Colorado Punk Rock Army. I am more than delighted today to bring you guys a review on the new movie White Riot by Rubika Shah. This movie is getting outstanding reviews from some huge publications. Maybe it's too big for Colorado Punk Rock Army, but I feel that this movie is very, very important for not only our communities, but for our children's communities, for our legacies as punk rockers in 2020. Some of us are in our 50s and 60s right now. Some of us are in our preteens. So this movie is absolutely amazing. It's directed by Rubika Shah. Came out technically in 2019, but is now out for rent. And I'm assuming there was before the pandemic there was going to be a major release. Unfortunately, the pandemic, still ongoing. Unfortunately, will not be shown in theaters currently, at least as it stands. But it is available to stream and to rent. So let's talk a little bit about White Riot. In fact, why don't we roll the trailer right now so you guys can actually watch it yourselves?
It's gonna be a booster breakout!
I was asked, would he come down and photograph the punk night? Suddenly, the Clash come on and bang! There was this incredible cultural explosion going on.
It was a scary moment because punk could have gone either way. Some of the bands did have NF following.
The National Front were growing incredibly.
Keep our country free from invasion.
They're not English! They don't belong here!
We said what we need to do is do a thing called Rock Against Racism.
We're against racism in all facets of British life.
We want rebel music, street music, music that breaks down people's fear of one another, music that knows who the real enemy is. Love music, hate racism. The energy and the potential of it was what pulled all these people on board.
People in the room were artists and writers and political activists. It was immediate. I thought, this is a gang I'd like to join.
At that time, there was a massive amount of police picking up black youth.
I met this man, Red Saunders. He was like, we've got to get together, we've got to build something.
Rock Against Racism was white people finally waking up to the fact that there's racism here.
The thing to do is get involved in outside organisations with white people, with black people. The only way we can do it is together.
We were interested in the idea of people being able to express themselves and that the expression itself was a political act.
Black, white, together, tonight and forever!
We're going to march from Trafalgar Square to Vicky Park. Get a stage, build it, got to have the Clash, absolutely great energy punk band. The police were ridiculing us, saying nobody's going to come to this march.
The numbers just kept coming.
In this society, we're made to feel powerless and useless, and that the great and the good should do our thinking for us. And one of the wonderful things that we did in Riot was to say, no, just ordinary people, we can do things, we can change the world.
Wow. So that trailer is absolutely amazing, guys, and I cannot recommend this movie more. Rubika Shah has done an amazing job gathering all this archival footage. So let's actually go over some of this footage. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I feel like that should be left up to the movie to do for you. But after watching this movie, I learned so much about where punk rock came from, and it really got me thinking about the future of punk rock as well and the future of the music industry. And the reason I'm going to say that is in 1970s England was a lot like it is right now. Of course, there wasn't the coronavirus pandemic, but they had unemployment was at a staggering rate. And you had kids, basically, say kids in their teens to their 20s looking for work, and they just couldn't find one. It was like, well, hey, you either go work in this factory, even though you went to a university, this is what you have to do in order to survive. And a lot of the kids at that time, they didn't want to just go join the rank and file over at the factory. Listen to Career Opportunities by The Clash, and you'll get it right away. The problem with this is it also, the unemployment and everything that was going on, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, had to come in and bail out England, but also kind of brought in this kind of not new age thinking, but kind of a thinking that has always been there of fascism and racism, which was started by a political group called the National Front. Now, the National Front was very public and very outright about their views, especially against people of color, saying you need to go back to where you came from. They were even willing to give people money to go back to their country, which they may not have been in for over 500 years. And that's how awful this organization was. And they are very much reminded me of today's Proud Boys. I mean, the National Front was the Proud Boys of the late 1970s, early 80s. So the great thing that came out of this, though, was a punk zine called TempoRaRy Hoarding, which was founded by Red Saunders, Rodger Huddle, and Kate Webb. They got together, created this awesome fanzine with this amazing artwork, which you'll see in the archival footage, and had interviews with bands. They also showed their distaste for fascism in the music industry, in which you'll find people like Eric Clapton, Rod Stewart, and yes, even David Bowie a little bit. Now, the whole Bowie thing, I actually went in to do some evidence for myself in trying to find this. Bowie's sayings could be taken in different ways, but at one point he did kind of hint that he was kind of for the National Front, and that was kind of scary, which, again, take it as, you know, I don't know that I feel like he definitely meant it. He's kind of a sensationalist, and so I always take David Bowie with a grain of salt sometimes, even though he's a musical genius. Maybe at the time it was popular as a musician to be in favor of the National Front. I don't know, but then again, when you look at Bowie's lifestyle, it doesn't matches the policies of the National Front. Anyhow, so this band actually features live footage from bands like The Clash, Steel Pulse. You will see something super cool that Steel Pulse and The Clash did together to fight the National Front. I'm not going to go into details about that. You see footage from Tom Robinson, which was a new band for me. Like, I had heard of Tom Robinson before, but I started listening to his lyrics, and I'm like, wow, Tom Robinson was kind of like the Bruce Springsteen in England in the 1970s that Springsteen was over here, although Tom was a little more outright in saying, you know what, screw racism, screw fascism. And you're even going to see some interesting stuff about Sham 69 you didn't know, and that might change your opinion on how you feel about them. I love Sham 69, but after watching this movie, it's good to see you'll see towards the end what happens with Sham 69, but it was good to see that. It made me feel much better about them. Also, there's interviews with Pauline Black, Styrene from X-Ray Specs. Personally, I would have liked to see a little bit more input from the ska movement of things. Ska, the two-tone movement, was building at the same time during this. I kind of would like to see a little bit more of that. That appears to have come a little bit later, and that may be why. Also, you know, how much can you really fit into, say, 2 hours? That's the hard part of this. The most important aspect of this movie right now is to make sure that we, as people who can vote, that we go to the voting polls and the polls, excuse me, and that we voice our opinion and how we feel. Now, I don't care who you vote for, but all I think you should do is just vote and get it done now. So you guys can go ahead and head over to thefilmmovement.com or filmmovement/White Riot. You can watch this movie today, and I would love to have you watch the movie and tell me what you thought about down here in the comments, because I feel like this is a movie that it's profound for our generation. It really is. I'm 42 years old, and it took me this long to learn information that I learned in a two-hour movie about punk rock. I mean, it's a movie that you can watch with your kids. There is a little bit of violence, but not. It's archival footage, and it's not anything that you could definitely watch with your kids. Show it to your teenagers. Say, hey, you know what? The scary thing is, in 2020, what was happening in 1970s England, which was happening in America as well, with the rise of the Reagan administration, is still happening in 2020, and it needs to be stopped. We need to stop fascism. We need to stop racism. So in closing, this movie is absolutely amazing. You can go check it out over at the Film Movement, not the Film Movement, it's just filmmovement.com/White Riot. Again, filmmovement.com/White Riot. Again, directed by Rubika Shah. I couldn't recommend this movie enough more, guys. Go check it out. Again, tell me what your thoughts are down in the comments below after you watch the movie so we can have a great discussion. Thanks. You've been watching Skabones here on CPRA TV.